One of the biggest plays in game one, you make the call. Karl-Anthony Towns, offensive goaltend or not? Hawkeye technology. Ooh, yes, they got the call right. Bucket off the board. It was a huge play. And Edwards said he wanted Kyrie. He got him. What to make of Mavs 1-0. And check it out. Lamar Jackson's made the decision to drop some weight to be more agile this season. Losing weight after an MVP season. Is that the way to go? We're down for debate around the horn. Some people like to get up for debate. No. You get down for debate, Mavericks 108, T-Wolves 105. Dallas fans had been waiting for Doncic and Irving to have big games simultaneously. Maybe it didn't feel that way at first, but the way they closed out, Irving and Luka's defense too. That's a big headline. So too how Anthony Edwards played game one. Non-Ant-like, 6 of 16 from the field. Odd rhythm to that game for Minnesota. Chris Finch, head coach of the Timberwolves, said they had a no-nonsense film session today because now they know the conference finals have started. David, it did start last night, though, in the game. What's your number one takeaway from Dallas's win?
Number one takeaway here is we got 2016 NBA Finals Kyrie Irving in this series, and a lot of the problems that happened for the Wolves trickled down from there. We hadn't seen these teams play a lot during the regular season, but when I watched, it took me about a quarter and a half to say this Wolves defense is in a little bit of trouble. Kyrie Irving, 18 of his 24 points in that first half were in the paint, and a lot of the stuff that was bad for the Wolves came from there, namely the fact that Anthony Edwards was looking gassed for a lot of that game, trying to chase him around the court. 16 shots, 12 of those shots were from three. His average distance from the goal when he was shooting was about 22 feet, which is the worst that he's had in his career when taking at least 10 shots. He seemed a little bit tired, and Kyrie decimated that team's defense, which allowed Luka to take over in the fourth.
Frank Isola, number one takeaway from Dallas's game one win.
Yeah, and to what David said, and we all love Anthony Edwards, but he did a lot of talking after winning Game 7. He did have 2 days off, and then all you're talking about is how tired you are. You're the youngest guy out there on the court. But Kyrie Irving was spectacular with those 24 points. And think about the conversation after Dallas lost Game 1 Oklahoma City, and Luka wasn't moving well, and we're thinking, well, this team's fried. Now look how good they look. Think about this. Minnesota made 18 threes. Dallas only made 6, and they still won the game. They pounded them inside, outscoring them 62-38. Right now, Dallas has a good thing going, and if Kyrie is so dynamic and Luka, when he gets the ball in his hands, the whole game slows down to his pace. They're lights out.
Kevin Blackstone, number one takeaway from game one.
Well, I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves are still a little hung over from having dethroned the champions of the NBA. I mean, that, I think, took a lot out of them, and we have to recognize that. And remember that Anthony Edwards had a 5 for 15 game in that series and came back to help win it. So he can bounce back from the one he had last night. And then the other thing is that in 3 of the last 4 games that they won against the Mavericks, they shot significantly better than they did last night. I mean, they shot 40% from the three-point line and 50% from the field. So they've got improvement that they can make. But this is the one time where you look at that backcourt of the Mavericks and you say, man, these guys are dynamic. Got paced in the first half by Kyrie and bookend on the end by Luka.
You're right there, right, Kevin? That it did feel like this whole postseason they were waiting for them to play well together at the same time. We got a glimpse of it maybe yesterday. Marcel Louis, Jacques, the number one takeaway from game one win for Dallas.
Tony, it has to be Kyrie's increased aggression. In the series against the Thunder, we kind of saw him try to take or let the game come to him, right? He would operate more as a closer. But I think he averaged, 4 points a game in the first half against Oklahoma City? He had 12 of the Mavs' first 22 points, though, last night. That's the version of Kyrie that Dallas needs. And one thing I do like about Anthony Edwards, to switch over to Timberwolves, he likes to talk trash and generally likes to back it up. So I don't know if I'm going to say he bit off more than he can chew here with that Kyrie challenge, but Irving was 4 of 5 against Anthony Edwards in the first half last night, 0 for 4 in the second half. So he does have the ability to guard Kyrie, just maybe not over a full game.
Frank Isola, you're Chris Finch. You're in that no-nonsense film session today. What are you telling your team?
Yeah, I think I'm telling, especially Karl-Anthony Towns, try to get in the block and score there. He took way too many threes. Think about it. Luka and Kyrie, 65 points or 63 points, and Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards only combined to score 35. Not good enough.
What do you think a nonsense film session is, if this was no nonsense? What do you think you're doing in a nonsense film?
You know, like The Longest Yard when they were watching film, like the Adam Sandler
Maybe
version?
you're right. Yeah,
Probably something like that.
Then that would be that. You're right. We'll move on. Headline number 2. Pacers Celtics game 2 tonight. Let's get ahead of ourselves here, people. Adjustments, Frank. You were there for the Wild game 1. What do you expect to see? What do you need to see tonight?
There I am. I was there. That's proof that I was there. We're going to need to see Indiana, how they respond, because they took a gut punch. Let's face it, in game 1 of this series. It's funny about Boston, though. They go through these lulls. 12-0 to start the game. They're up 13 in the second half. And next thing you know, Indiana should have won that game. And yet Jason Tatum, 36 points and 12 rebounds. They're judged so differently than everybody else. They've only lost twice this playoff. The biggest thing for me with Boston, can they be intense for most of the 48 minutes? They go through way too many lulls, which is an issue for them.
What is an adjustment then? Again, let's get into that film room here. And what specifically can you say to Jason Tatum maybe to extend what was a good line, but for a 48-minute game?
I think what they might do, Al Horford's been struggling a lot defending pick and rolls. There's been talk about playing Tatum at center, going small to match up with Indiana
right?
to make them much harder to guard.
Kevin Blackistone, adjustments tonight you expect to see, game 2.
Well, the adjustment has to be made by the losers, and the biggest adjustment is turnovers. They had 22, they averaged 12, and they had all of those turnovers against a team that was last in the league in creating turnovers. That's absolutely ridiculous. And the other place they have to clean up is on the offensive boards. I mean, I thought Boston just crashed the offensive boards, didn't give the Pacers much of a chance, and still, it took kind of a miracle shot, right, for Boston to win that game. So if I'm the Pacers, I still feel good about my position.
Well, that's what I want to take away from Blackistone's answer. Marcel, you got an adjustment for tonight from the Pacers' perspective or for Boston's?
Yeah, Tony, I keep hearing, like, from the Pacers side, they're like, oh, man, like, we showed that we can compete. We showed that we can compete. There's no moral victories this time of year. The fact is you had the game and you let it slip because you turned the ball over 22 times. Take care of the ball, and also I want to see them be more aggressive in getting to the line. They only shot 10 free throws in game 1. From Boston's perspective, though, like, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone here if you take Horford out the game and put Tatum at center, because Tatum struggled against Nesmith in game 1 for 7 when he was the primary defender. Put him at the 5, takes him out of that matchup, and all of a sudden they just have to do more of the same. Win game 2 and keep on keeping on to the finals.
Jr.
For me, it's the Pacers' composure in that fourth quarter. I think it's not to be lost on folks that this team is the first team since 1998 to lose a game while they have the ball up 3 with 10 seconds left in the game. From the last 5.5 minutes of that game, including overtime, they had 2 field goals made and 5 turnovers. They allowed Boston to score 32 points off of those turnovers throughout the course of the entire game, and that's more than Boston has scored off turnovers all season. They need to have composure. They need to take care of the ball.
Kevin, just feeling your vibe, you were composed. You didn't have the elbow patches in a bunch when you were answering your question in Indiana's favor. You got the Pacers tonight?
I do have the Pacers
I thought
tonight.
you
Thank
might.
you for asking, Tony.
Marcel, how about you?
Boston.
David Dennis Jr.?
I'm going with Boston. They already had their bad home game.
Frank Isola.
Boston, double digits. I think they win a blowout tonight.
One more story here. It's the news of the day from Cleveland. Cavaliers making a move at the coaching position, firing J.B. Bickerstaff. This is a team that made the playoffs, won a 7-game series in round 1 over Orlando before losing to Boston. KB is firing a coach after a playoff appearance, the right move for Cleveland.
Absolutely the wrong move. I can't believe they actually did this. Here's a guy who took over after the Beeline experiment blew up and only made the team better every year that he was there, got him to the playoffs for the first time last year, and made it a further step into the playoffs this year. And now you're getting rid of him? Makes absolutely no sense.
Hey, Frank, you see it like KB does, that this is a move that you can't explain?
100%. 100%. Evan Mobley, 50 games during the regular season, 57 for Darius Garland, 55 games played for Donovan Mitchell, and he didn't play in the last 2 games against Boston. And guess what? They were actually competitive in those games. I think this goes back to Donovan Mitchell and whether or not he's going to sign that extension. If he's stomping his feet and saying, I want J.B. Bickerstaff here, I think he's here. I think it's unfair what they did.
David Dennis Jr.
I agree. Totally unfair. The best 3 players in this team are only healthy for 28 games. This is a terrible move, but beyond that, it's the way that these franchises go about making these moves. We saw this with Vogel, with Ham, and we're seeing it now with Bickerstaff. And right after they get bounced from the playoffs, you have anonymous sources talk about all the unrest and all the bad things that are happening in the locker room, and then a week to 2 weeks later, they get fired. Just, stop with all of this subterfuge and all the leaking to the media, and stand on your decision without having to tear somebody down the way out.
Marcel Louis-Jacques.
They said, stand on business, whoever's leaking from that locker room. No, Tony, this is a case of mistaken identity, as in the Cavs have mistaken themselves for a team that should have higher expectations than the second round of the playoffs. You don't make this move when you have struggled like you've struggled post-LeBron. So I don't get it. This roster construction is a little redundant. The 4 best players more or less play the same position. Not to mention they were hurt throughout the year. I just don't understand why you get rid of this guy.
I hear a lot
when
of
he
big
did
picture
exactly
stuff.
what you should
Small
expect from
picture,
this
Frank,
franchise.
Game-to-game management. Was the team operating as well as they should have been?
They're operating about as well as they could have been, considering how many games these guys have missed. Like, they beat an upstart Orlando team, and they lost to perhaps the best team in the NBA. There's no shame in that. It's definitely not a fireable offense.
It was one of these firings where the team releases a social media post saying thank you, which you always wonder about as well. Taking a break. Fires on that.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Seaport. Brought to you by Patron. Perfection starts with Patron.
Panthers 3, Rangers 0. Kachuk's first period goal held up all game. And then later, the rare own goal, a 5-holer doing in New York. Frank, would you buy what you sell from Florida's Game 1 win?
Florida now 5-0 in the playoffs when they score first, and if they have a lead going into the third period, they don't lose. They were 40 wins during the regular season when they lead after 2 periods. So for the Rangers, who lost to Florida twice during the regular season, this could be, everyone thought it was going to be Carolina. It could be the Florida Panthers that knock off the best team in hockey.
KB.
Well, the Panthers are playing awfully well on road ice. I know that, so that doesn't make any difference to them. And the way that they won last night, even with the on goal, remember, they had a goal that was taken off the board, right, for interference, I believe. So they were really on a roll last night, and I like what they're doing.
There's been a few of those this postseason. This one was definitely interference so far into the crease. Marcel Louis-Jacques, takeaway from Florida's win.
Hey, when you got a goalie like playoff Bob Sergei Bobrovsky, playing with a lead is a dangerous thing to do. Panthers are plus 17 after the first period. It's the best mark in the NHL right now. They got off to an early lead and kept it. Rangers were the best home team in hockey this season, so this is not an insignificant loss for them. We'll see if they can bounce back later in the series.
David Dennis Jr.
This Florida defense is the real deal. They went 14 straight game minutes without allowing the Rangers to even have a shot on goal. Bobrovsky stopped all 23 attempts on goal. This defense is legit. They had 23 shots on goal. Only half of those through the first 2 periods. They kind of picked up in the third period. But this defense is going to be tough.
Are you suggesting shooting is important? Are you suggesting you miss 100% of the shots you don't take? Is that David Dennis Jr.?
When you play playoff Bob.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 2. Storm 84, Fever 83. Here it is, play of the game, play for the game. Christy Wallace inbounds to Caitlin Clark. They can't connect on the ground. It's a turnover. And now 0-5 for the Indiana Fever. To continue a conversation we had earlier this week, would the losses turn a tide on the hype around Clark and Indiana? But also, now we're at a reaction to the reaction phase of attention here. LeBron James, Charles Barkley, De'Erica Hamby, all weighing in the last 24 hours. David, how do you consider it all?
First of all, again, shout out to Jewel Lloyd for the team that won 32-11 in 38 minutes. But my question here for Barkley and LeBron James is, who are these haters? Who are the mythical haters who are doing this to Caitlin Clark? All I see are a bunch of fans who are propping her up whenever this happens and saying that this is a bad thing for her when she's losing like rookies are supposed to lose. What needs to be talked about, we're talking about what she can do for the WNBA, but what about what the WNBA has and continues to do for Caitlin Clark? Because they have set foundations for her to be this megastar that she has the potential to be. She is not out here talking about people being, downing her and hating on her. It's everybody else. Let Caitlin Clark handle her own battles because she's more than capable of doing that.
Frank Isola.
I think Barkley was responding. There were a couple of high-profile people in the media where they explained, the phenomenon of Caitlin Clark, and everyone conveniently leaves out the fact that she's a special player. We're all drawn to greatness. We were drawn to Steph Curry before, and he got a lot of blowback. Tiger Woods was the same thing. Shohei Ohtani. There's something different about it. And also, when you bring in the racial component, let's remember, Diana Taurasi has been a savage playing basketball for 20 years. Breanna Stewart may be the greatest, arguably the greatest women's player in history, and they didn't get 1/10 of the attention that Caitlin Clark got. People are just drawn to her. There's no sometimes explaining a phenomenon. She's a great player.
Kevin Blackistone.
And if we're just going to bring a sports analysis to it, let's remember she was the #1 pick in the draft for one reason. Because the team that she went to was the worst team in the league the other year.
That's right.
So she can't improve that just overnight on her own. These are struggles that are going to go on and on night after night, and sooner or later there will be a breakthrough, and sooner or later she'll have a game-winning shot that she will make, and sooner or later we will move on. And just
I believe everyone is of an opinion, maybe that's not even an opinion, but understanding that that's how this could go, should go, will go. The idea here that Derica Hamby is listening to Charles Barkley and saying, what are you talking about? These players aren't coming out here. Jonquel Jones is saying, I haven't heard any of this. Marcel, I want you to weigh in here, and then we can talk it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't think comments like that, like Barkley and LeBron, I don't think they're helping because it's continuing to kind of elevate one player above the rest of the league and put an even bigger target on her back. Now, I think that the best thing, the healthiest thing for Caitlin Clark is for people to just let her be a player in the NBA, not let her at WNBA, not make her out to be an immediate superstar. But the turnover problems that she's had over the first few games, it kind of reminds me of like a rookie quarterback, right? Playing in the first NFL games, the passing lanes are smaller, the competition is faster, the speed of play is faster. Give her time to figure out what she can and can't get away with. But yeah, man, the Fever were the worst team in the WNBA last year. They have that #1 pick for a reason.
I think they were the 3rd worst team last year. I understand that. We've established that. Here's where I am, because I want to talk about the Charles Barkley comments, the LeBron comments. It feels like people are reacting to social media and or fans and putting it on the players. Am I right in that, Frank?
No,
I think you're 100% right. And I also think, let's remember, too, if you're a college basketball player on the men's side, your season ends in March. You have all this time before the combine, summer league, and then you get basically 4 months to prepare for your season. All these WNBA player rookies, their season just completed. They got no time. And now we're judging them. And by the way, I went to the game and watched her on Saturday. She's a pretty good player. She is not the problem with the Indiana Fever. Can she get better, and will she? Absolutely. We're judging her and all the rookies way too harshly after just
David,
a couple
last
of
word
weeks.
on this.
Yeah, if we're talking about tangible social media and backlash that people are receiving, which LeBron and Barkley did not provide, we're talking about Aaliyah Boston, again, who has had to remove her social media because people are blaming her for Caitlin Clark's bad start. We're talking about Angel Reese and the press conference that she did at the end of the season and talking about the actual abuse that she's received online. What I've seen from Caitlin Clark is a lot of support and a lot of actual negativity around players who oppose her as opposed to anything directed at Caitlin Clark for the most part.
Or a couple of great screens on her and great tough defense on her. That's not petty. That's good basketball. And allow the players to play it out on the basketball court. That's what we're here
Sports
for.
analysis. Thank you.
David Dennis Jr., Marcel Louis-Jacques, thank you for your time. Blackistone, High Solar. Showdown next. Showdown. Here's Lamar Jackson. Here's the image on one side of him last year and the image on the other side of him this year. And people are wondering, has he lost weight? Did he lose some muscle or mass? He says there's no target weight he wants to get to, but he doesn't want to be below 230 where he was last year, so he can be more agile this year. Kevin, he won the MVP last year. Is losing weight a good strategy?
Exactly. He doesn't need to lose any body weight. The only weight that he needs to lose is that playbook from the AFC title game last year that kept him from getting to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. That's not a bad line. Ice, how about you?
The backfield gain weight with Derrick Henry standing back there to block for him.
yeah,
I don't know. Patrick Mahomes put on weight. So does it really matter? The best quarterback in the game is getting heavier. The big thing for Lamar Jackson, just avoid getting hit. The older you get,
maybe
the
he
more
wants
you
to
gotta avoid
run
getting
some
hit.
more again. You know, I mean, you know how well he runs, but it's been a few ticks
don't run
down
straight.
as he's progressed. We'll split the point. We'll move on. Bullpen cart. Remember to tip your driver. Reliever Steven Okra came prepared. He tipped $5. But remember, the fare was free, so he tipped infinity. What percentage are you tipping, Frank?
You know what? If I'm the closer, I'm giving $10. But here's the thing. There was nothing better than Mariano with the slow jog to the mound. If you're not going to run to the mound, you got to take the car and tip your driver, please.
JB?
At least $5.
I'd give him $10, and I'm just glad that somebody is actually using a bullpen card. I mean, the thing is electric now. Let's not just have it go out there and go around and not pick anybody up or drop somebody off. Put it to use. Thank goodness.
Frankie, you called him the closer. He's not the closer. But we'll give the point to
I said
Kevin
if-
Blackistone
If
for the
If you're the
FaceTime.
closer.
Oh, thanks so much. And I absolutely love the comeback of the bullpen card. It's been going around D.C. for a few years now. But hey, back in the day, do you remember when Casey Stengel had a black Cadillac in Chicago because he didn't want to be shown up by the White Sox? You remember when the Yankees used to have an actual car? You remember when a tugboat was the actual thing that took people out of the Mariners bullpen and brought them to the mound? One guy had a motorcycle. I can't remember what team that was. This is fun. Let's bring them back.
Okay.
I just got run over by one. That's not
23 and a half hour
break.
break. We'll see you tomorrow around the horn.